Thank you for joining us for this exciting joint webinar hosted in partnership between the Angeletti Group and Hatch. My name is Michelle, and I am the Associate Vice President of Marketing and Client Development with the Angeletti Group. Just some housekeeping items before we begin. As you may notice, we are recording the session, so we will distribute that via email, and it will be posted online following the event. We are happy to answer questions during the presentation, so please put those in the chat. We will answer the quick ones along the way, but hold questions that might require a longer discussion until the end of the session. So just for some background information on our firms, we're not sure who came from which party here. So the Angeletti Group is a full-service nonprofit consulting firm that provides a comprehensive range of organizational and development services. These include development assessments, metrics-driven major gift programs, campaign planning and management, prospect research and wealth screening, board development, strategic planning, executive search, interim staffing, and more. And we partner with clients across the country in education, healthcare, community building, and faith-based organizations to deliver philanthropic counsel tailored to our clients' needs. In addition, the Angeletti Group's Arts, Culture, and Media Division, or ACM for short, offers bespoke solutions for public media, performing arts, and cultural institutions. Hatch is an AI-powered prospect research platform that empowers nonprofits to strategically identify high-value prospects, foster engagement, and maximize fundraising impact. Hatch provides a complete human profile for each prospect, delivering 70% more data than traditional wealth screening, including a holistic view of each donor's wealth, giving history, lifestyle, career, social presence, media coverage, and contact information, empowering your team to engage confidently. Now, today, joining us, we have Peter Hansen, Principal of the Angeletti Group's Arts, Culture, and Media Division, Dan Holmes, Associate Vice President of Data Analytics at the Angeletti Group, and Moshe Hecht, co-founder and CEO of Hatch. And together, they're going to guide us in exploring how to unlock the potential of your mid-level donors. So without further ado, I'll now turn it over to our presenters.
You want to go to the next slide, Michelle?
Yeah, can you see the results of the poll?
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like our most popular attendees are from the arts, culture, and humanities sector. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
All right. So to kick things off, before we get into the part with Hatch AI and the piece on mid-level donors, we wanted to lay the groundwork for how AI is being used in the nonprofit space today. So we call out a couple of high-level stats, one of which is that the majority, really 2/3 of organizations using AI today have larger budgets. Some of the different AI services can be expensive, some are more affordable, but it leans more towards the top, with 66% of organizations using AI having budgets greater than $1 million. Another part is the strategic gap, which is there are a lot of organizations that are exploring AI and are interested in the services and wonder how it could be used for their organization, but only really 1/4 of those organizations have a meaningful plan to incorporate it into their everyday work. Another piece is the capacity, which really ties into the resource disparities. But almost half of nonprofits rely on really just 1 to 2 staff members to manage all IT, if AI is incorporated into that AI decision making. So it's really reliant on 1 or 2 people to manage incorporating these new processes. And then the last part is the optimistic outlook. which is nearly half of all organizations. 47% believe that AI could significantly boost their organization's productivity, really streamlining everything and making everything happen in a more seamless fashion. And that number just keeps going up as more people dive into it and figure out how it could work for their organizations. The number of people wanting to use it keeps on increasing. So that number will continue to increase. Next slide, Michelle. And then we have a couple of other additional data points, and this is of organizations that are employing AI. Roughly 60% are using it for their communications, whether that's generating emails or automating outreach to prospects and things like that. Most common uses of AI in nonprofits today are budgeting and forecasting, communications and outreach, and prospect research, which is a big portion of what Hatch does, whether it's prospect research or AI. Moshe will talk about Sir Hatch when he does his demo in a little bit, which is a great piece of their functionality. And then the last piece is that 75% of nonprofits using AI are looking to either increase or significantly increase the amount they're spending on IT and technology support in the coming years, really kind of leaning into it. Once they have it, they want to make sure they're using it the correct way and that they have the support they need to handle everything that comes along with using AI. Slide.
So I'm going to talk about the core of this presentation, mid-level donors. And the impetus actually for this discussion was a report done by a group called Sea Change Strategies in 2024. And it's titled The Missing Middle. And this is actually the fourth in a series of studies and reports done by Sea Change, focusing strictly on mid-level donors. And I saw this at AFP International Conference in Seattle, and it was kind of one of those aha moments because it brought together data on a segment that some of us may overlook a bit, and in terms of their true lifetime value. And it brought this data together in one presentation that really underscored who these mid-level donors are and why they're important. So Sea Change, just to, I always have to do my disclaimer, my car commercial. Your results will vary. So this is a report done in a particular time with a particular cohort. What your mid-level donors will look differently, but the data is still valid. So Sea Change looked at a cohort of nearly 6,000 donors across 36 organizations, and they defined this cohort as contributing between 1,000 and 10,000 annually. And again, this definition is going to shift by your organization, depending on the size of your organization, who you are, if you are a national nonprofit versus a regional versus a community organization. But the takeaways, as I said, are still valid. One of the key takeaways for me was that these mid-level donors represent significant value in annual fundraising and in sustaining nonprofits. Mid-level donors can account for up to 30% of annual contributed revenue. That is a significant amount of annual revenue to sustain organizations. It also challenged the study challenged an assumption that I had as a CDO, which is, well, mid-level donors are my best major gift prospects, or some of my best major gift prospects. In fact, the study showed, looking at these 36 organizations, that only 10% of mid-level donors would consider upgrading above $10,000. So that was, again, that was another aha moment, and underscores why we need a robust mid-level pipeline. But there was a nuance within the data. Now, so only 10% would consider upgrading. However, if you were the favorite organization of the donor, they were 2 times more likely to upgrade. So this, with other data points, going to underscore the importance of collecting data and understanding your donors, because being the favorite obviously has an implication on your fundraising. So, while the pipeline for major gifts may be limited according to this study, don't dismiss the mid-level cohort because the report also showed there's significant loyalty and lifetime value within mid-level donors. One fact that's not on this slide is that the report pointed out that many of these donors start giving when they're 20 to 39 years of age and give for decades. So that runway is significant. What they contribute to your organization over 20 years can be very significant. But unfortunately, in my work as a consultant, I've seen too many nonprofits kind of label this mid-level group kind of like as ATMs, for the annual fund. They're labeled as renewals, and that they will, keep giving when asked. Rather than being stewarded and engaged, we go to them with the annual appeal, or maybe we send them the annual report and then go out with the annual appeal for them to renew at their $2,500, instead of taking a donor-centric approach and stewarding them and engaging them. Because what did these donors say in the report? They want stewardship, and they feel they deserve it. The study also reinforced another point that was interesting about the value of these donors. 1/3 of mid-level donors consider themselves advocates for their organizations. And we know from fundraising that advocates are some of the most valuable volunteers we can have engaged, because they affirm our mission to others and become, in fact, volunteer fundraisers in many cases. So let's go to the next slide, Michelle, and talk about demographics. So who do, according to this survey, this study, who are mid-level donors? Well, the demos are not really a surprise. They tend to be, Michelle, I think there's something up there. You have, could you go back? Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to reshare. We have some comments that people are
okay.
seeing me rather than the presentation. So let me just see if I'm going content only. Did that resolve?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You seeing
So,
great.
demographics, not a surprise. They're older, predominantly female. It's not in this slide, but they're overwhelmingly Caucasian, which is another issue we could discuss in a separate webinar. And highly educated, 64% of a postgraduate degree. They are also very financially secure, with nearly 50% reporting a net worth between $1 million and $5 million. And they are incredibly loyal. 83% have given to the same organizations. And by the way, they support multiple organizations at this level in the group surveyed in this report. 83% have given for 3 years, and 50% have given for a decade or longer. One of the most important points that came out of this study, and why we need to pay attention, steward and engage our mid-level donors, is plan giving, and also this points to their lifetime value. 1/3 of the people surveyed, 1/3 of the respondents, have already provided for their organization or organizations in their estate plan. Additionally, 23% said they would consider it. So you have 50% of the respondents in this survey are plan giving donors or prospects. That is a phenomenal pipeline. We always look to our major donors. We frequently look to our major donors. We say, well, those are going to be great plan giving prospects. Well, those of us who done plan giving, no. Yes, but, and that but is that mid-level donors and sometimes even my lower level donors who've been engaged for a period of time, usually a decade is kind of the magic number, become great prospects. There are other factors too. Do they have children, grandchildren, et cetera? But that decade of engagement is kind of a magic number. So, and this reinforces it and shows that this is an incredible pipeline for plan giving prospects. So there's some opportunity gaps, though, looking at mid-level donors. First, you need to build a robust pipeline. And why? Well, because potentially 30% of your contributor revenue is coming from this group. But also, if you have a conversion rate that's about 10% from mid-level to major gifts, it points out you need a big pipeline of mid-level donors to feed into that major gifts, But also, you want a big pipeline, you want to grow your mid-level pipeline just because of all the stats I cited. The value of these donors, the intrinsic value to your fundraising. Second, stewardship is critical. We talk about sometimes this group is overlooked. A donor-centric prospect management is not optional with mid-level donors. And they said that in this survey. They clearly said they want to know impact. If you want to retain me, show me the impact of my gift. And in fact, there's some psychographic information within this report that shows by generation, that is a common theme. Show me impact, and show me, and your values must align with mine. But the impact was really essential. That and ease of access to information. So stewarding these donors, we talk about in our work, we create donor journeys, which are engagement strategies for donors at all levels, but particularly mid-level. And it's the idea is that they're digging in and understanding your institution, your mission, and their impact. And finally, and this is you need to move beyond traditional wealth screening. I've used wealth screening for decades. When I was a CDO, I have to tell you, if you're a mid or large size organization and you have tens of thousands of plus records, so those of us in the arts, and by the way, ACM does more than performing arts. We do visual arts too, and zoos, all types of institutions. But if you have, in the arts, you may have hundreds of thousands of records in your CRM because you're selling tickets, you have admissions. Applying traditional wealth screening to that is not enough. It's the only tool we had maybe a decade ago, but it's just not enough to help you identify, prioritize, and deepen a relationship with your mid-level pipeline. So before I turn it over, just two housekeeping issues. One thing that critical takeaway from this report for me was the importance of understanding your donors, gathering data, and analyzing them. So who really are your mid-level pipeline? What's your conversion rate? So getting as much data as possible beyond annual contributions. Also, I should point out too, they 59% give annually, but 23% give monthly. So this is a group that is prospects for your sustainer program. And if you don't have a sustainer program, you may want to consider it a monthly sustainer program. And finally, if you're interested in the full report, it's extensive. As I mentioned, there's psychographic profiles within this. My email's at the end. Just email me and I'll send you the entire report. So I will turn it over now to our friends at Hatch.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone at the Angeletti Group, Dan, Michelle, Peter. Welcome, everyone. My name is Moshe Hecht. I'm the CEO and founder of Hatch. So before we jump in, we're about 20 minutes into our presentation. I always like to do a little bit of a deep breath with everybody, do 3 deep breaths. We're kind of coming at the end of the week. It's Thursday. We're thinking about the weekend. So let's try to just take 3 deep breaths. Let's go. All right, now that we are fully grounded. So, Peter just shared a lot of data on mid-tier donors and these commonly overlooked donors. So I'll share something personal. I know what it's like a little bit to be overlooked. So I actually come from a family of 14 siblings, okay? So I have 13 siblings, 14 of us. I'm number 12. So I know what it's like to be overlooked and ignored in this big batch of very talented individuals. And I think I think it's a good comparison to when you have an organization and you have either a small or a large database, and you really want to give every single one of your individuals in your database attention, like a mom and a dad wants to give every single child their attention. But when you have 14 kids, it's hard to give them attention. And the idea here is that what we're going to present to you is enabling you, giving you the tools and the information to find those particular data points of those individuals that will really make them shine and give you those opportunities to engage with these individuals in your database. So What is Hatch? We are an AI-powered prospect discovery, which identifies up to 70% more wealth and lifestyle data than traditional wealth screening. So those of you who are potentially right now using a wealth screening platform where you're going to get wealth signaling data, so IRS, FEC, SEC information, mortgage holdings, things that basically essentially help tell you answer one question, an important question, but the question of who's rich, right? Who has that large capacity? When we came into the space roughly 4.5 years ago, we wanted to answer that question, but tell you much more about those individuals and to give you what we call a complete human profile. So we're gathering social data from multiple social media platforms, lifestyle data like skills, interest, full career information, real-time news information, real-time tweets, YouTube videos that create what we call a complete human profile. So when it comes to engaging those otherwise potential those donors that might have been overlooked because they don't show up right at the top of your database as being the most wealthy people, but like Peter mentioned, they have an incredible potential for the future of your organization and do make up such a large part of your potential fundraising goals. We want to identify those things that make them tick, those things that make them click, and those things that ultimately make them give. And that's why we're gathering so much data into one single source. So we use AI to combine not only their giving history, but their demographics, their career, their social signals to be able to create this human profile. And what's really important, I think what's really stands out is the fact that much of the data on our profiles are live information. So when you think about mid-tier donors, they're in flux, they're in momentum, they're coming from one job to another job, they're climbing the ladder of their careers, they haven't settled, they're not in their senior years where they basically exited or retired and have those funds to give. They're still in motion. So to see live information on an ongoing basis is critical. And last but not least, we have multiple CRM integrations. So if you're using RENXT, if you're using Salesforce, we have bidirectional integrations with those platforms. And we also have an open API, which allows you to integrate our data into another CRM if you don't have one of those two. Next slide, please, Michelle. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do a live demonstration of building a mid-tier pipeline. Now, obviously, there's risks that come along with this. I don't know if anyone saw the Meta Glasses live presentation by Mark Zuckerberg. It was a complete flop. But that's the risk that you take by doing live presentations. But we prepared for this. And what I want to show you, because I know some of you are thinking, well, how do we actually get this done? Sure, they exist in my database. How do I identify them? How do I create a plan for each individual person? How do I segment them? And how do I create not just today, but a long-term plan into the future organization to sustain and to grow and to engage with these donors? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a segment within a mock database based on capacity, affinity, and lifestyle. Then we're going to show you how we can personalize our engagement through different touch points that we can do to either further segment them or to directly engage with them. And then number three, what we're going to do is further engage on a personal level, invite them into insider experiences, write them an AI-powered GPT letter. We're then going to show you how you can then strategically assign them to specific ask amounts. And then finally, we're going to show you how you can then measure, track the pipeline, grow the pipeline and the response rate of this real-time mid-tier donor pipeline that we're going to create right in front of your eyes. Okay, so someone else is sharing, so I just sent a request to allow me to share. Thank you very much. Okay, just a reminder that we have the chat bar open. So if at any time during this live demonstration of building a mid-tier pipeline, you want to ask any clarifying questions, we have Mark and Ben from our team that can help with any clarifying questions. And if there are any questions that would be good for discussion, we're going to have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to discuss these questions as a group. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is what the Hatch Pro, what your Hatch dashboard would look like once you have upload your database. So what we've done here is we've created a mock database. So don't judge us for accuracy, because we've actually intentionally mixed and matched some different pieces of information for privacy. But this is a mock database for American Cancer Society, obviously a very popular nonprofit organization with mock data. Some data is real, some data is not, but just for privacy and security, we're going to show you, imagine this as an imaginary database. So this database, specifically why we chose to use an American Cancer Society, is because much of our scoring is going to be based on the affinity to your organization. So when you upload your data into your Hatch dashboard, you're going to give us information on yours. AI is going to learn everything about your organization, and then all of the scoring, many individual parts of those scoring are going to represent the affinity specifically to your organization, and not just your mission statement, but your broader, all your events, all your history of your organization, everything that the AI can find online about your organization. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you what this complete human profile looks like for as you can see over here, our scoring. You can rank by the scoring, and I'm going to show you the person who scores the highest in the database. So I'm just going to show you the highest scored individuals in our database, just to give you a sense of what a complete human profile looks like. So you have some kind of a contrast that's like, okay, what does a major gift donor look like, right? What does the ultimate donor, a transformational donor, look like for your organization? And then we're going to build out that pipeline of mid-tier donors for just some contrast. So we're going to bring up the first highest rated individual in our donor base, and I'm going to really quickly just show you some of the data points that we have on each individual, and we're going to focus a lot on the scoring, the AI scoring. So when you upload an individual into our database, you're typically going to give us first name, last name, email, phone number, mailing address, some of your donation history, and any other ancillary information that can help with accuracy. So middle name, spouse, and so on and so forth. But identifying information is roughly 5 to 6 data points. And everything that you're going to see is coming through our third-party data enrichment. We gather data from roughly 40 different sources. So everything you're going to see is the Hatch Complete Human Profile that we enrich for your database. So we have a fellow here, Henry Robert Kravitz. Many of you probably know who he is. He's a famous philanthropist, co-founder and executive chairman of KKR, advocate for cancer research, board member, XL Springer, and Iconic Capital. So that's the AI is basically gathering all the information from the page and telling you this. We also deliver a more robust summary built on AI and an AI bio. And then we're also going to give you some of that raw data, like his LinkedIn information, a picture. And this is just in the snapshot section. And we're going to let you know when he was born, his age, his alma mater, his occupation, websites he might be affiliated with, email address, phone number, political leaning, direct links into his social media platforms, a little glimpse into his philanthropic giving, a little glimpse of his social influence, and that's just in the snapshot. The second section is going to be the scoring, which I'm going to come back towards the end, because I want you to see all the individual data points that Hatch provides that builds out this scoring. So let's start with lifestyle. So he's 81, married to Marie, has three children, lives in a nice apartment in the city, religious orientation, skilled in strategic planning, leadership and management, interested in golf. So just a nice lifestyle, families, home, spouse, children, and whatnot. Then we go into career details. So we're going to give you a full career history in chronological order, starting from where he started in 1976 all the way to where he is today. And we're going to give you pieces of information like the company, the inferred salary, the job level, the industry, employee count, and a whole bunch of information. And it really goes further back. So you can see the career trajectory of every individual in your database, where they started and where they are today. Okay. Now let's go into the wealth overview. So we're going to show you information like their assets, their properties, plus their stocks and their stock value, where the price of their share is holding today. So a real-time stock portfolio, a donation profile. So we'll list some basic information like their largest gift, their average gift, their donor level, what type of categories they like to give to, full donation history from their 990s, everything they've given through a foundation, individual donations coming from annual reports, political giving coming from the FEC, so a full donation history. And then we're going into a social map. So we're going to show you their Twitter, LinkedIn colleagues, Facebook connections. We're going to show you real-time YouTube videos, real-time tweets, connections to their colleagues, direct links into their YouTube, confirmed news articles, list of publications. So this is a quick look into all the sub pieces of information that we're going to provide on the individuals. Now, a lot of data doesn't necessarily make things easier as prospect researchers or major gift officers or directors of development. So what we've done is, and this is where our scoring comes in, we built 5 0 to 100 sub-scores based on the individual's affluence, their propensity, so their donations affinity, their profile affinity, and their RFM score. Now, what makes our scores unique is that every single one of these 5 sub-scores is being powered by the wealth signaling data that you typically have today. In addition to that, the 70% more data of the social, lifestyle, career, real-time news information. And then it's also being sent, this data is being sent through the AI to the large language models that is getting any data that we missed. And many times that can be hundreds of articles, backlinks, YouTube videos, reading social media, and so on and so forth to create what we believe to be the most advanced scoring system available for nonprofits today. And these 5 scores make up your Hatch Giving Score, which is an amalgamation of these 5 sub-scores, and that can be edited. So if I wanted to weight it with just affluence and propensity, or let's say just affluence and affinity, I can weight it in my settings and I can easily in real time change that score. In addition to that, we're also going to give you what we call a gift capacity rating over the next 5 years. So the lifetime value of that individual's giving, potential giving, over the next 5 years to all organizations. And a target ask amounts, not just in one here, this is what you should ask them, but a tiered targeted asked amount of what should be that first ask, that engaged ask, and that max transformational ask, let's say if it's a capital campaign, a real lifetime giving. Now, in addition to these scores being powered by really the data that is available today on these individuals, we're going to give you a AI-powered insight, a real plain English understanding behind the score. So these are not black box scores. Just trust us. You know, they get this is they're highly affluential. We're actually going to give you an explanation. So in this case, Henry has a stock portfolio valued at 25 billion, has made substantial individual charitable donations totaling over 3.4 billion. Same thing goes with propensity. Now, where things get really magical, in my opinion, is when we start to look at the donations affinity scores. So you might be familiar with affinity scores, which are typically powered by categories. So if my organization is American Cancer Society and I see that they've given to other organizations that are also health related, so they'll get a high score because they've given to other organizations that fit our category. What we are doing actually is we're going way beyond category. We're leveraging AI to create an affinity score for every single individual donation that's going to rank their recency, frequency, the amount of donation, and an AI-powered explanation for the mission alignment of every single individual donation that is coming through. So this is, forget everything you know about affinity scoring and take a look at this. So let's say, for example, this is Henry's donation history. What we've done is we've ranked every single one of his donations that come through all our 3 donation sources. And we're giving them a score and ranking them highest to lowest based on the recency, frequency, amount, and basically an AI-powered explanation of the mission alignment based on everything the AI knows about your organization, knows about Henry, and it knows about the organization that he is given to. So take, for example, obviously the first one's American Cancer Society because they found this organization's donation in another in one of the public sources. So obviously that's going to come up first. But take a look at what's number 2, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And it's going to tell you in plain English why we think that this individual donation scores high. Both organizations are leaders in cancer research and treatment, with Memorial Sloan Kettering focusing on patient care and research, and the American Cancer Society emphasizing research, advocacy, and patient support, which suggests a high likelihood of donor overlap to their complementary missions. Doesn't that read kind of like exactly what, let's say, a prospect researcher would put into a dossier? What maybe someone preparing a profile, prospect development officer preparing a profile for a major gift officer. That's kind of what sometimes hours, sometimes days, sometimes weeks of research would give you that information. But in our case, the AI does that for you. So our customers are taking this mission aligned statements for these individual donations that they've made, and it's ranking them based on the highest likely connection affinity to your organization, and it's individually scoring each one and then creating a master score, which is a combination of all those sub-scores. So in this case, Henry has demonstrated a strong commitment to cancer-related causes, notably through substantial contributions to my organization, plus Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer and the Lung Cancer Research Foundation, indicating a high likelihood of affinity for supporting similar organizations. Now, donations affinity is a nice thing to have, obviously super important. What we've done with our AI is we've gone way beyond just the donations, and we're looking at the entire kind of lifestyle, career, social footprint of Henry, and we're seeing what could the internet, what could the data that Hatch tell me beyond the scores. So in this case, he serves as the trustee of the Mount Sinai Medical Center, which has significant cancer treatment and research programs, right? These are affinity facts, we call them. He co-founded the Mary Josie and Henry R. Kravis Foundation, which has supported medical research. He's in the age of cancer. He has skills in philanthropy and social impact, and they get less and less relevant as you see over here. So between all of these scores, which are highly intelligent, highly easy to understand and explainable because of the explanations that go behind those scores that append these scores, giving you your Hatch giving score. Now, so this is a good example of like, obviously a major donor, potential to give $3 billion over the next 5 years, but we're here to identify mid-tier donors. But now that you understand what a profile looks like, we're now going to build a mid-tier donor pipeline right here live. So based on all of the information that I showed you, and I wanted to show you some of those data points, you can now filter by every single one of those data points. So let's say, for example, I'm here to create a mid-tier pipeline. I can go to all of those data points and I can start to segment my ideal list. So we have information like wealth, their home value, their inferred salary, their assets. We can go in there and create a segmentation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on donor level today. So I'm going to look at, and I'm going to identify all people out of my 7,000 people that give either publicly or through my organization's donations. And you could, depending how you want to do this, you could either start with creating a list of like, I know who gives to my organization's donations, or you can do both, that they give both mid-tier to mine and to public organizations. I can actually decide based on a specific amount. So if I can say like people who give between 10,000 and 50,000, I could segment that as well. In the last year or the last 5 years, we have a little kind of smart filter here where literally you can click anybody in my database who in the last 5 years has either given to my organization or public donations a mid-tier gift. Now, this is editable. So when you use our platform, you can standardize this where in your case, a mid-tier could be $500,000, right? Depending what you consider to be a mid-tier. For this presentation, we created mid-level donor to be, they've given in the $5,000 range. And I could add different data points. So this is my sort of my capacity filter. Now I could add multiple filters to this where they are considered a mid-tier level, but they give to specifically arts and culture, right? So I can add that. They give to mid-tier level, but they give specifically to crowdfunding campaigns or capital campaigns, right? Or they are monthly types of donors, right? I could add the mid-tier loaner plus the mid-tier donors plus they live in a certain demographic, plus they are a certain age. So if I follow some of the data that Peter mentioned, I will add some of the age. Or if I want to challenge some of that data and I want to say, well, are there millennials or Gen Zs that are potential mid-tier donors in my database? I can go as far as attaching a skill. So let's say I'm looking for mid-tier donors that are skilled in golf, right? That are skilled in a type of event that I have coming up, that are interested in, let's say my organization has a technology arm or is looking for technologists for a specific type of event. So the types of filters are endless. You can add people who are mid-tier donors, plus they have a high social influence, right? Plus they work in a certain company or they work in a certain career. So when you think about identifying mid-tier donors, you're not just applying the capacity in our filters. You could apply their affinity to your organization, their lifestyle, their career information, to really identify a more poignant, more surgical group of people. So I'm going to apply that list to here. I got 236 for those particular filters, but I've prepared a list. I've prepared a list in my list section of the full mid-tier donors. And in this list, we have over 1,000 people in these mid-tier donors. So what you're looking at over here are lists and segmentations that I can potentially.
I think he is having a technical issue. Does that sound off for everybody else? Dan, Peter?
Yeah, he appears to be frozen.
It's frozen.
All right, we'll give him one moment, see if he pops back in to the meeting here. I love technology. Thank you for all the questions in the chat. We are trying to answer them as best that we can. As you can see, the software is pretty complex, and we're trying to provide a demonstration of how you can create a pipeline of these mid-level donors and then actionably, create a plan to reach them and steward them.
In the meantime, Michelle, there's a
Yeah,
couple of questions in the chat if it's okay. I
sure.
can take a stab at some of these because Marisa asked if the information within Hatch pulls the data from their CRM, in this case Tessitura, and become an outside database, or does it remain synced in with their CRM and individual donor records? We currently have integrations with Salesforce and RENXT. So if you're using one of those as your primary CRM, we can sync the data between those two systems. Otherwise, we would handle that as an export and then an import. And if you have further questions about it, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Mark. I'm the head of sales here at Hatch. We can always follow up after. And as well as there was a question earlier about specific lifestyle information and how that's impacting the scores. Moshe gave an example there of the scoring that you could see under those affinity scoring system. If he's able to hop back on and join us, I'll have him kind of dig down a little bit further into that. And again, if you have further follow-up questions, then we can handle that after.
Hey guys, we're just having some flaky internet issues here, but Mo should be back on in 1 minute.
Mark, there was a question about how do you check the data? So someone said if there's a common name like John Smith, how do
I'm back on if we can continue. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. But we're good for me to continue?
Oh yeah. Yep. We were just answering some questions, so feel free to hop back right in the flow.
Yeah. Okay. So we're right here now. We have now segmented a list of 1,100 people out of the 7,000 people who fit this mid-tier donor criteria. Okay. Now, you could then filter, sort individuals. So I want people in my mid-tier level that have, let's say, for example, the highest Hatch score, right? And I can segment those people. So if you notice before when we had the entire database, the highest Hatch score was around 90, 93. Here we're looking at 63, okay? So I've prepared a few profiles of mid-tier donors within this list of 1,000 that we can start thinking about how we can personalize, engage, elevate, and measure our impact with these individuals. So let's take an individual like Andrew Neff. Okay. So we've shown you some of the data points that we provide, the snapshot, a little bit of a philanthropy. As you see over here, we found 4 confirmed donations of a totaling of 5.3 thousand, which would make him a mid-level donor, as you see, very nicely marked, accurately marked as a mid-level donor. Let's go through his scoring. Okay. So Andrew, and the intention here is how do we then personalize, engage our communication with Andrew? So we know he's a mid-level donor. Hatch gave us those specific filters. Where do we go from there with Andrew? So first we want to just confirm some information. Okay, so affluence score, he's kind of there in the middle, right? He lives in a nice, really nice home. He's made donations of not millions or billions, but 387,000. Notable history of charitable giving. And he has a mid-level donations affinity score. So here is where we want to start saying, what direction do we go with Andrew? So let's look at some of his donations. It's a few donations, okay? We want to see how Andrew's donations align with our organization. So we see over here that he's made a very substantial gift to the American Cancer Society. But we also see, and we don't know that from the data source exactly how much that was, which is typical for mid-tier donors, which the annual reports are not going to show smaller gifts or anonymized gifts. We see that he gave a gift to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, which is a significant healthcare provider and research institution with a focus that includes various medical specialties, including cancer treatment and research. This aligns closely with the American Cancer Society's mission to combat cancer, suggesting a strong potential of donor overlap. Now, I also want to look into his profile affinity and see where there could be opportunities to really start putting him into an engagement track. So Andrew's interest in new epilepsy therapies and advising patients demonstrates strong alignment with ACS's mission, right? He lists advisor to patients amongst his interests, indicating experience in patient support. He lists epilepsy speaking opportunities as an interest, suggesting experience in health advocacy that aligns with ACS's public awareness efforts. He includes charitable initiatives. So we're seeing that the profile that I'm building, I never met Andrew in my life, but we see that Andrew happens to be someone who is a mid-level donor, who is very much involved in his life. He is very much involved and aligned with the mission of our organization. So this is definitely someone who I now want to have a very focused, very strategic engagement plan with Andrew. And there are multiple things that an organization can and should do at this point. Okay. The first thing that we can do is we can start a conversation internally about Andrew to look at the potential to start to create a conversation internally. So you can come in here into notes and you could tag someone in your organization, and you could write something like, "Hey, Tudor, I noticed that here that Andrew gave us, X amount of money last year. He seems to be extremely involved in our mission-related causes. What do you think we can invite him to? Where do you think we could? Is there an opportunity for him to get more involved?" I could directly add him to a new list. Okay. Let's say I have a fundraiser in my organization, Samantha, who is in charge of dealing with mid-tier donors, of people who have a really strong likelihood of coming to events. I would assign this, Andrew, to Samantha's mid-tier donors for stewardship. Okay. Now, What if he might not be a major donor of $1 million potential, but let's say, for example, when I'm looking at his target ask amounts, where I see his first gift could be a $22,000 gift, an engaged gift could be 110, a max gift for 400,000. What from my lists do I see a potential to add Andrew to for further engagement? Let's say, for example, we have a Giving Tuesday campaign coming up, and Andrew would be perfect for a 10, 20, $30,000 matching gift for our Giving Tuesday campaign. Let's add him to our Giving Tuesday matcher campaigns. Okay. What if we have a golf sponsorship coming up, which it costs $2,000, $5,000 to bring a group of people? We can add him to our potential sponsors for golf. Imagine if we looked into some of his skills and interests, right? Let's say we go into some of his interests, his interior design, right? This is where this additional 70% data starts to surface all of these opportunities when you think about all of the strategies that we have in organization. Anything basketball, charitable interior design, marketing, these are all directional pieces of data that can help us segment him further, collaborate internally, and then if we want to think about measuring where we're going to put Andrew, there are multiple ways that we could come here and add to the status. We can move him from, right now he has no status because he's been ignored, right? But we can move him to discovery. We can move him to cultivation. We can move him to solicitation, right? We could save that and that will be saved. We can add a tag to Andrew, and we can say, if we don't already have a mid-tier donor tag, we can add mid-tier, add that as a tag. We can add our own specific gift capacity rating. So Hatch is going to give us what they believe based on the science of what their gift capacity is going to be. But if I want to say, you know what, I want to put him as a mid-tier donor, I want to ask him for a $5,000 gift. I want to save that. I want to ask him specifically for a $5,000 gift, like I mentioned before. I want to ask him for a $5,000 gift for either our Giving Tuesday campaign. So I'm going to add that tag, I'm going to add that status, and I'm going to put him directly into that list. So now you have an engagement plan for this individual person based on data that you never really knew about before you were using an enrichment service like Hatch. Now, sometimes with mid-tier donors, it's appropriate to really start communicating them right away. Okay. I know we have just a few minutes left, but last thing I want to show you is writing a letter with Sir Hatch. So if I'm like, Andrew is a great prospect for our Giving Tuesday campaign, for our specific segmented perfect ask for his mid-level giving. I want to write a 200 letter right to him right now. I'm the director of development. I want to write a personal invite to our Giving Tuesday campaign or to a parlor meeting. I'm just going to click a few. I'm going to make it casual, include his details that he's interested in marketing, interior design, and charitable initiatives. I'm going to generate a draft, and your first draft letter directly written right here within Hatch. You can either save the draft or send it directly through Hatch, directly through the platform. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're going to stop sharing and bring up any questions that we have at this point.
So Moshe, a couple of questions that we had in the chat, one of which was around specific information, lifestyle information that is impacting the score. If you can touch on that. And then I know Ben was answering a question about elevated profiles to increase the accuracy of the scoring. So if you could speak to those two things, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so the scoring is being powered by, call it 3 levels of data, okay? The first level of data is the wealth signaling information. So we get the classic wealth signaling data that you're going to, that you have if you use a wealth signaling tool, a prospect research tool. So it's pretty much on par with that. So we get all the donation history, mortgage holdings, SEC, FEC, IRS, foundation information, and whatnot. On top of that, we are gather information from social media platforms, lifestyle information, career information. So that's powering the score. And then on the third layer there is we're taking all of that information, which helps a lot with identity resolution, right? So if you're going to use a chat, an agent with this information, you're going to run into the John Smith problem, where you're going to find 45,000 people that potentially match your individual. When you're using Hatch, when you're not putting it into the AI before you've identified the right person with the right information, with the right career, the right job titles, and so on and so forth, we then send it through the AI, and then the AI is going to gather additional data that the large language models have on those things. And that's based on articles, different resources as well. And all of that information, like lifestyle, career, is going to power those AI insights that append the score. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate you expounding on that further. Could you touch on for a moment as well the elevated profiles?
Yeah. So when we came into this space, we knew that the single greatest problem that we're trying to solve is the time that prospect researchers spend building ask-ready profiles. So you get a request from the fundraiser. Here's John Smith. I'm meeting with him or her next week. Can you please prepare a profile for this individual? And that can take hours, that can take sometimes days, and sometimes even weeks to create, especially when it's a very high profile individual and there's a lot of information. So what we've done is we've created a process where when you get that data from the initial enrichment, before you go in and spend hours on confirming and completing a lot of that information, you click a little button on top of the profile called Elevate Profile, and that profile will go through a screening. We have 10 of our own prospect researchers that go through every single data point of that profile. And you'll fill out a little bit of a survey. You'll tell us some missing information, like, do you know like a nickname? Is it Avraham versus Abraham? Is it Mike versus Michael? Just to give us some cues for elevating that profile. And we're going to go ahead and confirm and complete everything on the profile. Within 2 business days, you'll get that profile back as a notification in your email with a link directly to that profile. Typically, they're usually 80% done. There's always going to be information that only the organization knows anecdotally about those individuals. But typically, it's going to take away about 80% of the prospect researcher's job built directly into the platform. So when you think about the time savings that we're providing, not only with the AI that is creating amalgamation of all this data through the scoring and through the AI insights, you're also going to be getting every prospect researcher gets a personal prospect researcher on our platform.
Thank you so much for that demonstration. I know the platform is very powerful and has a lot of unique capabilities. So I'm sorry we ran out of time, but we did have a lot of interesting questions, and it was helpful to see that in action, to see how you can uncover these mid-level prospects and create the pipeline, and then actually create the plan to reach out to them, all with these data points. So I do have everybody's contact listed here. We are going to send the presentation and the recording out after this. We will have a feedback survey in there, and we really do appreciate if you could provide us feedback. Please forgive us for the technical challenges that we had, but we're happy, if the presenters have a few more moments to take some additional questions, but we do want to be mindful of time and just respect everybody at noon to go off to the rest of your day. So thank you so much for joining us.